Welcome to the George Mason Continuing and Professional Education webinar on cloud computing. Today you're going to get a chance to hear from our faculty about this new professional certificate. This certificate was launched in the past 6 months by our nationally renowned faculty who work closely with companies in our region designing and implementing cloud solutions. This is a unique course designed for the professional. It's compressed into 5 6-week modules that are taught asynchronously, meaning that you can move through the course at your own speed, but have a lot of interaction with the faculty along the way. This is really one of the first programs in the nation to be verified by AWS and is going to prepare you for 4 of their certifications. But it's important to note that this course of study takes a multi-cloud platform approach, including Azure, Google Cloud Services, etc. So today, the short introduction is designed to give you a sense of the faculty that you'll be meeting and the kind of personal attention that you'll get from our leading project-based approach to instruction. Please check us out on cpe.gmu.edu/cloud for more details and to register. And I'm pleased to present our esteemed faculty to discuss this exciting new cloud program.
I've been doing development in many different facets for several years, and I've always kind of embraced the idea of learning more and more. My specific course here is geared towards developing applications specifically for the cloud. So this would be folks who are interested in roles such as either a cloud software engineer, cloud developer, web application developer, or perhaps an AWS software development. Those types of roles is kind of where a lot of the information is kind of geared towards. In addition, we look at how you develop in the cloud. Okay, not only developing for the cloud and architecting things for the cloud, but we look at how you develop for someone who actually wants to actually do the development in the cloud itself. Things like Cloud9, which happens to be one of the AWS browser-based IDEs that they offer. We look at how we develop and architect for the cloud, things like serverless computing. We get into a little bit of that. We look at how you integrate the services together. We obviously look at how we secure them and gain access. You cannot talk about things like cloud development without thinking about things like security. I mean, it's got to be something that's baked in from the ground up. So obviously you have to have an understanding of how we secure applications in the cloud, how we secure the services, and how do we limit access and things like that. We'll cover all of that. You don't have to have, it is kind of a programming class in a sense, but you really don't have to have that much of an understanding of languages. If you do, that's helpful. If you've been through a class that has a language such as Java or C++, that's great. But it's not critical to be successful in this particular course. The labs that we have offer languages in many different flavors. You can try it in Python, in Node.js, and Ruby, just to name a few. So we cover, the labs are pretty well structured so that it'll walk you through that if you really aren't that comfortable with programming. And again, this whole course prepares you for the Certified Developer Associate exam to become an AWS Certified Developer. So what the class is structured, we have 13 modules. We'll cover 2 to 3 per week because it's a 6-week course. Each module will have a reading assignment. The book for the course is the same book you use for studying for the Associate Developer Guide for AWS. So we're using that same information, so you can kind of use that to leverage preparing for that exam down the road. We also provide instructor notes and online resources that are part of it. And each module will have a knowledge check quiz at the end that you can take just to confirm that you understand that particular module's information. There's also going to be hands-on labs, 4 to 5 hands-on labs. They'll take anywhere from 30 to 2 hours to complete those labs. We'll also have weekly virtual sync-ups. So this is one of the advantages of having a course like this, in that you have a live instructor. I'm available. We'll both get together. We can bounce ideas off of one another. We really try to kind of collaborate as much as we can, just so that folks are able to kind of share each other's experiences and do some networking, just to kind of get more of a kind of an interaction going within the course. In addition, we will have a project towards the end, and that project really allows you to actually build something. And we'll talk more about that at the time of the course, but obviously the idea behind that final course project is really just to give you an opportunity to look at something from your own standpoint, something you're interested in, and build something that's cloud-based. So kind of leverage some of the different services. And the only thing with that is you and I will work together in terms of coming up with a good project that's doable in a short amount of time. And then we'll work together in terms of coming up with what that solution needs to look like. And at the end, you'll present that and get feedback from your peers, and also kind of show off what you've come up with. So it's a really another way of networking and kind of getting to know each other and understanding kind of what other folks are doing, what other possibilities are in development. So that's my course in a nutshell. I look forward to working with you down the road. Thanks.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bobby Verghese. I'm an adjunct professor at GMU for about 8 years now. I have about 15 years of security experience, like hands-on experience in various aspects, from security monitoring in the military to doing security engineering, security architecture, and auditing type roles as well. I also have hands-on experience building hybrid networks. A lot of the projects, Randy and I actually are colleagues, working on one of the systems we work and manage together. How the cloud works is a recipe for disaster, and you can often do more damage than good, giving yourself and your organization a false sense of security. So we want to avoid things like that. So how is this course different? What I found out there was there's not a lot of good cloud security courses out there, and this course is actually made from material based on my experience and our experience collectively, just putting it together and throwing in real world scenarios. Our goal, and my goal for my course especially, is to be there for you, right? To answer student questions, work through problems and solutions together. This is a great way to network with colleagues in the local area, right? Get to know your peers or get to know people in different companies. Who knows, you may find someone that may be looking for a job locally. So the first course I'll be teaching is the Cloud Security Fundamentals course. This course is designed for individuals who are aspiring to be cloud engineers, cloud auditors, risk assessment teams, and ANA teams, accreditation and authorization type teams. Right. So for anyone who's on those types of teams, you have to have a good understanding of how the cloud works to be able to know that, is it actually implemented properly? Is what you're auditing or assessing actually correct, right? So this covers cloud security concepts. We'll cover all three clouds, AWS, Azure, GCP, but we're primarily going to focus on AWS to reinforce the concepts. We'll talk about identity management and how critical this is for accountability purposes and for incident management or incident response. We'll securely connect to the cloud environments using client VPNs and site-to-site VPNs. We'll discuss those concepts and which is needed in which scenario. We'll talk about segmentation of the cloud in VPCs or different subnets and so forth. We'll talk about firewall concepts in the cloud and network access lists. And we'll cover various SaaS offerings that are security focused, and then talk about what actual benefit they provide, right? And which you should pick for which specific scenario. This course also touches on many of the concepts in ISC Squared's Certified Cloud Security Professional Certification. The second course I'll be teaching is the AWS Cloud Security. So this course is going to be much more focused on AWS and covers the abilities that are validated in the AWS Certified Security, the specialty certification. So we'll cover concepts like data classifications, and then how does AWS data protection meet that need. We'll talk about data encryption methods and the AWS mechanisms to implement them. We'll talk about secure internet protocols and AWS mechanisms to implement them. We'll talk about different AWS security services and the features they provide. And again, how do you apply them to a secure production environment? Lastly, we'll talk about how can we make trade-off decisions, right? Anything that goes to the cloud, especially when it comes to security, everything has a cost, right? There's a charge for every little thing you turn on, every knob you turn, every lever you pull, there's a cost. So how do you balance all that with cost, security, and deployment complexity to figure out the best solution for your deployment?
The assumption is that if you have some more experience, then you might be able to kind of go off and try some additional things. But the labs are structured so that if you really still finding a way, you can go right through the labs. They're pretty well laid out. They have instructions. They're telling you kind of what they're doing and why. So it kind of helps with both, right? If you're not that comfortable, you can just go through the labs and you'll be fine. And if you struggle, that's why you want to take a course like this. So you have someone available that you can ping ideas off of or ask questions to. And what's nice also is I can actually log in to your lab and I can kind of see what you're doing. So if you're stuck on a step, if you have more experience, obviously you can kind of try different things, right? That's the whole thing. But you can go over and over again and try them out and just kind of experiment and just get comfortable with it. But it's really kind of, I think it works for kind of both types of folks who have experience and those who are kind of still finding their way. In my course, as I mentioned, I do have a project at the end, right? So that is something you're not going to get specifically through AWS Educate. You're basically going to build something, right? And I think that's kind of important because you go through these step by step, you go through the quizzes, and yeah, check it. I know this. But at the end of that entire 6 weeks, you really need something to kind of hold together, and you're really not going to understand it unless you actually try it, right? And you can say, yeah, I know, I've messed around. I know how S3 works. I know how to programmatically access and create S3 buckets or automatically create EC2 instances. But how do I pull together an application that actually builds on all that? So that's kind of the purpose behind the project.
In the industry, I've seen like the DoD try to push heavily to go DoD or cloud first, right? But then I think everyone started pulling back because I think the expenses and the costs in the cloud caught up to people the hard way, right? You just got a bill at the very end that was just a lot bigger than everyone expected. And then then the shift was like, okay, let's try hybrid. So, and I see this in a lot of environments. And, like I said, Randy and I work on a project together right now where we see this heavily used, where it's a hybrid environment. You can't focus, if you're doing heavy compute, heavy RAM intensive, you're not going to want to go all cloud, right? Because that's a huge bill that you'll see. But to balance the, on-premise with the cloud is going to just grow in demand. And I think, this is my personal opinion, and I do believe that in the long run, that as cloud costs start to go down significantly, companies will really have to make that trade-off. Like, does it even make sense to get a data center of your own or run your own server room? Because it's not going to be cost effective anymore after some point. So I think the demand of cloud security professionals, cloud developers who would develop natively in the cloud, right? So there's a difference between just development and then using cloud services natively in your app to be able to be efficient and use the cloud services properly. That's what Randy is teaching.
Serverless, we don't necessarily talk specifically about serverless.com, but basically, when I think of cloud, there are a number of different providers out there, obviously, right? AWS is just one of the many, but they're all doing the same thing. They're all kind of trying to create a better mousetrap and providing. So there's a lot of overlap. So if you learn one, you can learn the other. And things like serverless, what they let you do is they let you do it in a generic fashion. So you can create something that works in AWS and then using their framework, be able to leverage Azure, right? Take that same, with maybe some modification, take it and stand up something on Azure. So we don't necessarily cover that one directly, but we do at least kind of give you the foundation you can then use to create those scripts.
Things like Terraform or CloudFormation scripts, we cover that at a basic level in the fundamentals or foundations course, and even just in the sense of like just building a standardized environment, right? So there's a lot you can do with like Terraform and CloudFormation, a lot, but one of the things that we can tie into from a security perspective or an infrastructure perspective is imagine building out a VPC or security groups and having that cookie cutter and just basically having a recipe that you can just deploy, right? And that every customer environment that you build is going to be built exactly the same, right? So from a standardization perspective, and a configuration management perspective, that ties into security as well, because it's important. If you don't know what you have, it gets very hard to secure it correctly. So we will touch on those topics for the foundations class specifically, just to kind of understand those concepts and know it's there. And then we can kind of play with the scripts to throw some environments out there and then tear it down and try it again type of thing.